literally impossible to tell who's speaking unless you have memorized the voices. Okay, it's 5:31. So I will call together or call to order this meeting of the Workforce Housing Committee, special meeting because it's a different day. Daphne, can you do the roll call?
Sure. Give me one sec. Okay. Bruce,
Here.
Aniro,
Here.
Roden,
Here.
Famularo,
Here.
Hickle,
Here.
Adams, I think, is on his way, Nugent,
Here.
and then Krull, Fortney, and Huang are absent and excused.
Okay, and so Nick and I are the two members who are participating on Zoom. Nick, if you can share your video, that's what we need to be official. To have all the members on Zoom sharing their video.
Yes, we'll do in a second, just kind of cleaning up.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Daphne, if it's okay, I'll do the minutes and then we can elect someone to leave.
Sure.
There.
Yes.
Okay. So we have 2 minutes to approve. The first one is February 19th. The second one is March 18th. For members, one of the things we've changed or are trying to change for all our committees is instead of doing a motion and a second and a vote, we just ask if there are any corrections or changes to either of the minutes. And if there are none, then we accept the minutes as circulated. So does anyone have corrections to either the February 19th or the March 18th minutes?
Nope. Nope. Nope.
All right, hearing and seeing none, I will declare those minutes to be accepted. And now, members, if you'd like to elect someone who is in the room, I think that's a nice courtesy for our speakers. Who would like to nominate someone in the room to be the chair of tonight's meeting?
I'll nominate Ben Roden.
All right, we have a nomination of Ben Roden. Thank you.
I'll vote down there. Right,
Ben, are you willing?
sure.
All right. Any other nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. All those in favor of Ben chairing tonight's meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations, Ben. You can take it from here.
All right, thank you. All right, so, we've got 3 presentations to start off with, right? So, Daphne, I think we have any in the business we need to cover before that, correct?
No other
Okay.
business.
All right, well, we'll start with Kurt.
You want me to sit there to advance my slide?
Yeah, you can take my spot
Okay.
here. And can everyone see the slides there? On the Zoom?
Yes. All right, so some of you have heard some versions of this before, so a lot of it is just extra information, and I'll try to move quickly. These will be available in the packet, so you're always welcome to use them or whatever you need. So they wanted me to cover just a few of the Middleton issues. And so I know that you really want to talk about Middleton specific, but I guess as a key reminder to all of us, the housing markets are regional and not local. But decisions about housing are actually local and not regional. So that's part of the disconnect, which is, I know that a lot of our citizens, I should say hi to those of you who haven't met. I was on this committee way back in like 2015, back when I was active doing things. So I live in Middleton, so I hear a lot of the stories. A lot of our people want us to think just about Middleton and, you know, what are our needs, but really we're embedded in a housing market that is regional. So this is just, again, just to give us a quick sense of who we're housing in Dane County. The long story short is that one of the reasons housing is really expensive in Dane County. Do you want me to minimize that? I'm going to minimize that. One of the reasons housing is really expensive in Dane County is that we are a very high income county. So the second highest income county in the state. And of course, we have a lot of people who earn over 100,000. So demand drives housing, right? Not just supply. If you want a refresher, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about affordability. This is kind of the distribution of income by household size and area median income. We can come back to this, but one way to think about it is a family of 3 that earn 68,000 would be a kind of entry-level salary for a teacher or a cop here, and they would be considered at 60% of AMI. And then we'll come back to this when we talk about homeownership affordability. So I wasn't able to release this slide when I talked at council, but now I can, since it'll be soon published by the Regional Housing Strategy. We're trying to figure out one of the main causes of housing being in short supply and affordability in Dane County is that the blue line is employment. And so you see that growth rate pretty fast over the last 30, 40 years. And then the green line is households. And so if you just want the math, households are people who occupy a housing unit. So if you don't have housing units, you don't get households. And so the forecast shows that gap widening. So we have 100,000 people who commute into Dane County who work here but don't live here. And that's why housing is in real short supply. And when people are added at the $100,000 income range, they can easily displace a household making 60,000 from the housing market. So I show this forecast to really show that this cannot continue, right? We were joking earlier, right? Either you have to increase the number of housing units in your county, or you have to decrease the number of jobs. So decreasing the number of jobs is far less preferable to increasing the number of housing units. Right, so and then because I'm a professor, I have to plot everything and show that the relationship between household income and housing costs is pretty linear, right? Higher income regions have higher housing costs. And you want to be below the line, which Madison is. So where our household income profile is above our gross rent profile. So we have reasonably cheap housing given how expensive and given how high our income is in the county. But we want to keep going that way because we don't want to go the other way. But in the last 16 years, we underproduced about 13,000 units of housing. So this is just to set the story of why Middleton's housing seems out of whack, is because we're embedded within Dane County. And house prices have gone up about 112,000 in the last 4 years, largely due to the increase in construction costs. So this is the pressure that anyone who's elected is feeling, because everyone's complaining about housing costs, whether it's rents going up or home ownership being out of reach. So if you want to think about it this way, the orange line is the building permits per capita in Dane County. We used to build a lot. The blue line is the ratio of the median house price to median income. You want that to be about 3.3, which is 1 over 30% if you're scoring along at home. We used to build a lot of housing. Housing was plentiful and reasonably affordable in Dane County. And then we stopped building and housing got expensive, so that now it's the ratio is over 5, which means millennials, young people, workers, you can't find any homes. If you're thinking about rents, this is about a month old, but it's about right. In Madison, Dane County, and rents in Middleton are pretty much driven by rents in Madison, right? So a little bit less per square foot because it's further to travel. So, but we're still at about 1,800 for a 2-bedroom. We're here about $225 a square foot, so not quite as much as downtown Madison. And so this is a busy slide, but if you want, the blue line is the vacancy rate in Dane County for apartments, and the orange line is the rent growth. And if you want the statistical analysis, it's this: when vacancies are below 5%, that means our housing is squeezed. Rent growth is pretty strong, but when vacancy is above 5%, meaning adequate supply, then rent growth actually turns negative. So if you follow along at home, you can see that when vacancies are increasing, then rents decelerate and go negative in the next 6 months. So,
And Kurt,
yeah.
Does it show that we actually are above 5% for Dane County right now?
So if you look at the seasonality, this is the time of year when we are frequently above 5%. So the 3-month moving average is 5.2% right now. But there you can see on the cursor that we have been, for most of 2021 and 22 and 23, we were well below the 5% vacancy rate. So a number of units have come online. right? And so the absorption rates show that, but yeah, we're right now as a county at about 5.2%. But that's going to go the other way very soon because the units in supply, both in the building permit phase and in construction, have gone significantly down in 2023 compared to 2022 because of interest rates and construction costs. So, yeah, and it's very hard to get detailed zip code level vacancy statistics for Middleton unless you use non-public data sources. So anyone in the commercial real estate industry is going to obviously have access to CoStar and those type of companies. But I never present that data because I want to use public data because make it clear. So, and just a reminder, when I was on workforce housing and we wrote our housing strategy back in 2015, which seems like barely dinosaurs had ended by then, and the iPhone was new. We looked that we had about 360 renter households who earn less than half the median income and pay more than 50% of their income on rent. And even though we've built a lot of affordable housing, this is true of all communities in Dane County, that number has gone up in the most recent time period. And this is HUD data, so it's 3 years lagged, so we'll get the new stuff in a couple of years. And if you're following the rental market, evictions have gone up from the pandemic, gone back up to an average annual rate that's above the pre-crisis levels. And so you certainly see this with tenants that it's harder and harder to find a place to live, rent's going up, and so eviction filings are going up. I'm just going to skip that because of time, but if you want the shorthand, how much does it cost to build a unit of multifamily housing in Dane County? About $340,000, all in total development costs. Yeah, and then this is the chart I think I wanted to talk about. Particularly talk about what is affordable home ownership. And so what this does is there's kind of 3 ways you can think about what affordable home ownership is. I know the mayor had asked me specifically to talk a little bit about this because this is the big issue, right? Everyone wants affordable home ownership in at least in the western side here, West Madison, Middleton, Wanakee, DeForest. So if you look at the first is an FHA type product, so a low down payment, 3.5%, even with a WIDA loan and down payment assistance. And there you're talking about that for a household that makes $100,000, you can afford a home that's $287,585 with a down payment of about $19,000. Now, if you've driven around Madison or Middleton recently, there ain't nothing available at 287, right? Not even close. And if you wanted to buy a conventional 20% down to avoid the mortgage insurance, you could afford something that's 371. And I know these numbers are accurate. I just ran the numbers this morning. So this is most recent mortgage rates. And then HUD has a method where they multiply your income by 3.36, which kind of overstates what you can actually afford because it's from a time of lower interest rates. So one way to think about it is the median house price in Middleton right now, according to Zillow, is $542. Median, so 50% above, 50% below. So that means if you wanted to purchase that with a conventional mortgage, you'd need $143,000 in income. Under the HUD method, you'd need $161,000 of income. And at the FHA level, you would need $184,000 in income. So part of the challenge is people like me were able to afford when we moved here in 2006. My house has gone up well over $250,000 in value. And I refinanced my mortgage like everybody else over the age of 50 at 2.8%. Sorry, Daphne. All the millennials that are my grad students and the Gen Z that are my students and my own children, they're like ready to crucify us right now. Cause like my 2.8% mortgage is like $1,200 a month. So you couldn't even get a 1-bedroom in Middleton where to get for a mortgage. So if we want to think about seriously improving housing affordability, we have to think about delivering new product into the market at that $300,000 to $350,000 price range, which is nearly impossible with stick-built, site-built housing absent some subsidies that Olivia might talk about. And certainly then the other product we want to think about, and this sets up Amy's presentation.
Thank you.
is factory built or modular construction. So that's kind of a lay on the challenge, and then that's the end of my slides. That was a lot of data and information quickly. I don't know if we want to do discussion, Mr. Chairman, now or at the end, or make sure to get the other presentations in.
Yeah, let's go with the latter, make sure we get the presentations and then we'll come back with the discussion.
Yeah.
So, which, Amy?
Yeah, next is Amy. I'll pull up hers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And you said those slides will be available, right?
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
I suppose if you're hiring a new teacher for the school
Can
district.
everyone on the
Live in
PowerPoint, or
Janesville.
see the PowerPoint now
Mhm.
on Zoom?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Amy Bliss. I represent the manufactured and modular housing industry in Wisconsin. This is my deputy director, Angie. She's been with me for quite a while now, and so feel free to jump in if I miss something and start talking too quickly. So we're here today just to kind of reintroduce you to factory built housing. Manufactured homes and modular homes, it's not really a product, it's a house, just like any other house. It's the process of how the house is built more efficiently, economies of scale, that type of thing. So that's my contact information. If anyone would like a tour of a factory, or to look at some homes, or to see some subdivisions or manufactured home communities, I'd love to show you. They're not going to be in Dane County, I'll tell you that. So, but they wouldn't have to be too far, Wisconsin Dells, Springbrook, it has beautiful homes in them. Up in Fond du Lac, La Crosse has a wonderful manufactured home community that is for 55 and older. And it's amazing. Everyone would like to replicate that in their community. So how can we help as a resource? For sure. We don't sell homes at the association. We are an association. We represent the factories that build the homes, the retailers that sell and build the homes on site. We represent land lease communities, so it's kind of hybrid ownership where they own the home but not the land. That saves a lot of money up front for the homeowner, and those are really good options as well. I'm gonna play this video for you.
Just like Wisconsin's government leaders and community groups, members of the Wisconsin Housing Alliance are always thinking about ways to build a better future for our communities, especially when it comes to providing affordable homes that are built to last. That's why we're deeply committed to providing quality designed, efficiently constructed, affordable homes to Wisconsinites from all walks of life. Now more than ever, the members of the Wisconsin Housing Alliance are committed to working with policymakers to make sure the dream of homeownership is still accessible in the state of Wisconsin. There are over 91,000 factory-built homes in Wisconsin, representing 3.6% of all occupied homes in the state. There are good reasons why so many Wisconsinites, from young families just starting out to downsizing retirees, choose manufactured and modular housing because it provides the most attainable combination of quality and affordability. Today, increasingly many of our neighbors are choosing manufactured and modular homes because they fit so beautifully into the character of the surrounding neighborhood. It's often hard to tell the difference between a site-built home or a factory-built home. From day one, every manufactured or modular home is an eco-friendly build, constructed in an efficient, climate-controlled environment away from the elements with a streamlined building process designed to reduce waste and keep costs low. After arriving to its final destination, whether a rural plot of land, a home on a lake, or a suburb complete with sidewalks and landscaping, factory-built homes have been expertly crafted to use less energy, up to 50% less, all while being easily upgraded with a range of Energy Star appliances to greatly reduce the home's carbon footprint. Customizations come in all shapes and sizes, from high-pitched roofs, solid surface countertops, soaking tubs, to smart technology. There are no other homes on the market today marrying personalization and affordability so seamlessly, ensuring that manufactured and modular houses can fit in wherever a person's lifestyle takes them. What's more, thanks to the federally mandated HUD building code and stringent Wisconsin building codes, manufactured and modular homes are strictly regulated for safety, security, and durability. Factory-built houses are not only required to meet state and national building regulations set by HUD, but they also undergo rigorous testing to ensure they can stand up to local severe weather like heavy rains and extreme temperatures. In fact, a 2014 study found that factory-built homes not only perform as well as their site-built counterparts in severe weather, but often outperform them. The average price for a factory-built home has remained reasonable and are $167,600 less than their site-built counterparts. Fannie Mae anticipates that affordability will remain an issue for the next decade. A 2020 Fannie Mae study found that nationally, the average cost of a new site-built home is $300,000, with a comparable manufactured home costing nearly $100,000 less, ensuring there's still the most affordable, unsubsidized housing in our state. Because just like you, watching neighborhoods grow, communities flourish, and people thrive is the reason we get up in the morning, and why we are devoted to providing high-quality, affordable homes to the most people possible. Join us today in building a Wisconsin where the dream of personalized, wallet-friendly home ownership is within reach for generations to come. After all, no homes are as adaptable as factory-built for meeting the diverse needs of Wisconsinites.
Okay, I just wanted you to see some of the videos so that you saw, some of the factory process. A lot of
Just
people,
like Wisconsin's government
how do I
leaders
get
and-
past this?
You have to push the arrow button. There you
Just like
There we go. I was so worried that it wouldn't play and now it doesn't want to stop playing. So in Wisconsin, we have basically 4 or 5 factories. We have 2 that produce both HUD code, which is a federal code, manufactured homes, and they also produce state building code modular homes. And then we have 2 that are just modular, which is Wisconsin Homes and Stratford Homes. And then Design Homes also does modular. There's panelized like Amwood Homes and Wausau Homes, which was mentioned earlier. And those are built to the state building code as well. The most bang for your buck with economies of scale would be manufactured homes, and then modular homes are a little more, and then panelized gets a little more than that as well. But a modular home and a manufactured home could be identical homes. It's just where they get their approvals and their inspections from. The approvals for a manufactured home is through HUD, and it's a very streamlined process, whereas the modular homes is through the state, and that's a different process, but they could be identical homes. So that's just a little bit about our members. We have a few that I asked that said they would service this territory, and I think if all of my members have always said, I don't want anything to do with Dane County. They've just had bad experience and they're not that interested unless I can tell them. We've met with them, they've changed their codes, they've seen the product, and you won't have to go through a 5-year approval process to build 1 or 2 houses. So I do think that this list could grow, but I know that there's developers that are very interested in being here because we've been zoned out for so long that they would relish the opportunity. So some people are a little confused about factory built, and I talked about manufactured modular and people want to know the differences. So factory built could be anything that I mentioned earlier. This is what too many people think of. They think of a mobile home, a trailer. Yes, that was great housing back in the day, and it served a purpose after the wars, and people didn't know where they were gonna land because of jobs and, newly married, and they didn't have money, and it was a very affordable product. And some people still live in them today, and if they were well kept, it's a fine product. So I don't want to diss it, but that's what a lot of people have the image of, a rectangle, an ugly metal rectangle. Doesn't have to be that way. This is how it started, as a trailer. So some people still use that terminology today, which is irritating to us in the industry. Some people don't say the F word, we don't say the T word. Unless we're showing a picture of a trailer. So this is a manufactured home, built to stringent guidelines. After 1976, the HUD code went into effect, and I'll talk a little bit more about the evolution of that. It can be one section. We still build the rectangle, and that's a great product for a manufactured home community, or on a rural plot of land, or your hunting cabin up north or whatever. So it's still there, and it's built much higher quality than it was. But generally, the multi-section with an attached garage, which all the industries can do, is what people think they want for a subdivision or city infill. And that's definitely doable with a manufactured home. And then the industry has come up with a new product. We call it cross mod, but we were trying to come up with a product that municipalities would be happy to have in their community. They have to have a higher roof pitch. They have to have on-site features such as an attached garage or a carport. In Wisconsin, we don't do a lot of carports. But this is an example of a cross mod. I don't think there's any municipal official that could say, oh, that's horrible. Let's zone that out. But I think people's opinions and attitudes have been so ingrained in old stereotypes. You don't wear parachute pants anymore. You don't use a rotary dial phone anymore. So you got to realize that products evolve over time. And then this is an example of a modular home. That's usually what I use as my backdrop, because it used to be these smaller homes were acceptable. If you go down Walter Street, for example, our office is off Milwaukee Street, kind of back in there. There's beautiful little homes that are well kept. But for so long, municipalities have had the ability to say, no, we want a single-story house to be a minimum of 2,200 square feet. We want a basement that costs $20,000 to $50,000 at least. We want sidewalks on both sides of every street, and we want the builder to pay an $8,000 impact fee so that we can have a park in that subdivision. So some things have gotten out of control. And now we're kind of seeing a resurgence of, yes, I want my son or daughter to come back from college and live in my community. In rural communities, especially, they're losing their school districts because people can't afford to live there. And they're having to, merge with other school districts. So, I'd love everyone to at least consider it. And there's been a lot of talk about ADUs, which our manufactured homes could be an ADU if that was something that people needed.
We do have manufacturers who do build
Yeah.
ADUs.
Yeah. And they're really quite cute. I wouldn't want to live in one, but that's because I need my sewing space. And then the tiny homes, that's a craze too, that I think, may go by the wayside. They do a home show, an innovative housing showcase every June on the National Mall in DC. And, there's container homes, there's boxables where you put them together like a puzzle. they're all like twice as expensive as a small manufactured home. So not to criticize them, they're trying to do a solution, but manufactured home beats them hands down, price wise. So anyway, and then the park model RV is something that people often want to try to live in or use as an ADU. It's not meant to be lived in year round. They're built for recreational. I think Wisconsin state law is 180 days a year you can live in them, and that's about it. So they're really designed for recreation. They're not built to any housing code.
I see, okay.
Yeah, they're built to what's called an ANSI standard. I can't remember exactly what ANSI stands for, but
Yeah,
I
it's
can
the
get it for you.
RV, they self-regulate their own codes, the RV manufactured industry, so it's built to their code and the walls aren't very thick, they're not insulated and stuff, so they're definitely not a winter home.
So it would not be titled as real property.
No,
Not titled as real property, no.
it's titled like a car, like a RV, I should say, yeah. They're cute. So I want to talk a little bit about new design. Is it okay if I go over by a few minutes? Okay. So our Skyline Champion Homes, which is down in Lancaster, this is one of their products, and they're trying to get more innovative with more modern roof lines and, you know, things so that you don't look at it and go, oh, it's a rectangle, it's a manufactured home or whatever. And they had a home show where they displayed this home. This is a rendering, but something just like it. It's a gorgeous home. It's just beautiful. I would challenge anyone to go inside that home and say, no, low quality. It's not the same. We've been working on the HUD code to get it updated, so that you can do more innovative designs. And one of our manufacturers is actually doing duplexes. The one on the bottom there was designed by Cavco, and we did display that on the National Mall in DC last year. And it was very well received, and it was done very, very well. So we can do duplexes now, and they're gonna be manufactured right here in Wisconsin, up in Dorchester, Wisconsin. I don't know who the designer of the top one is, but that's another option if you've got a lot of space, which usually is not the case, but. So, as far as what kind of foundation you can put the homes on, you can have additions such as garages, decks, entry and exits, obviously. They can be placed on a basement, a crawl space, concrete slab, poured piers, or any other engineered method. You know, obviously the engineering has to be there. And 100% of the homes are inspected in the factory. And then also the installation of the home or any additions is inspected on site by your local building inspector. So, you know, they have quality to them. They can go in, like I said, the hybrid ownership model, which is a great way to go. The homes that are on leased land get a chattel loan, which is at higher interest rates than a mortgage. But if they're on private land, those cross mod homes that I talked about, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will finance them with regular mortgage rates. And appraisers, if there are no other manufactured home comparables, the appraiser can compare them against site-built homes. So that's really something that's very important to the industry, because otherwise it was just hard. Appraisers didn't want to appraise them because they couldn't get specific comps. So the cross mod product is a great way to keep the affordability and to keep the mortgage rates low for the people buying homes. USDA Rural Development will finance them on private land, and so will WIDA. So that has gotten much better than it was in the past.
And there's a lot of local lenders too in people's towns that are more than
Yeah.
willing to finance a manufactured home on private land.
A lot of credit unions will finance them. The Bank of Sun Prairie finances them, so it's improving. So pricing, Angie just went to a seminar with one of our manufacturers. You want to talk about this slide?
Yeah, so his name's Andrew Bryant from Clayton Homes. He works with the Cross Mod Initiative through there, but he just 2 weeks ago, this was his pricing. He said in Madison that you could put a cross mod home for, this is the builder's price for $120 to $140 a square foot. Built with everything, landscaping, garage, he said everything finished, turnkey, ready to go.
Plus
So-
plus the land,
Plus the land,
plus land.
yep,
Yeah,
yeah, he priced that all out, he was shocked. Yeah, and this had a lot of realtors in the room who were all like, whoa, you know.
Site built is at least 280 to 300 a square foot.
yeah.
At
Yeah,
least.
Angie she brought in some cards from the neighborhood. Tell her.
oh,
Yeah.
so it was
Homes
just
for
kind of
sale.
interesting, so I kind of was looking around different neighborhoods, cause my home. I live in Sun Prairie and my home was built in 1999, I think now. But kitty corner across the street from mine is a home almost exactly the same kind of thing, and I looked and I'm like, okay, $169 a square foot. That's kind of interesting, and I was looking at this price, so then I started pricing more homes and I was like, it was interesting, like, that was really inexpensive home, I must say, they must want to get rid of it. But the farther west you go in Dane County, the prices just skyrocketed and up in the, low 200s a square foot, and I was quite surprised, so.
Yeah.
I know, up in Dorchester and Mid-Country Homes, they can, sell homes to retailers for, I mean, you can have a home that's got 1,600 square foot multi-section home for around $100,000.
Well, and one of the things about manufactured homes is it usually comes fully with appliances, washer, dryer, refrigerator, stove, everything. And they're name brand appliances, LG, GE, Maytag, Whirlpool, whatever. So, and they can all be upgraded if
Yeah.
the consumer wants it. So I think you told me you wanted to talk about some things that would make it easier. Obviously NIMBYism is one thing, and that's something you just got to do one or two of, and people go, oh, that's really nice. Yeah, that's about the only way to stop that. Outdated zoning. I mean, I see zoning at least weekly, if not more frequently, when people want to build a house and they've got trailer and mobile home and no building moved onto the site, and anything they could do to stop a factory built home. So obviously that's something that could be worked on. And we don't want any special zoning. We just don't want you to zone us out. We can meet roof pitches, we can meet all of the other requirements. So, expensive land, high impact fees really can kill a deal. For the home buyer, it's just not affordable anymore. So anyway, those are some opportunities to work with nonprofits. I know Habitat for Humanity is now starting to use manufactured homes because, they can still get the sweat equity that they demand doing the yard and the finishing touches on the garage and whatnot. So I really see that that's where it's going to have to start taking place. And I know you got someone talking about housing land trusts. I I am excited about that. So I'm excited to hear that presentation. So, requirements, is there a health, safety, or welfare issue to a square footage demand? Lot sizes with great big setbacks, is that a health, safety, or welfare issue? Don't mandate basements and 3-car garages, that just kills the whole thing as far as affordability. The impact fees, I think I've mentioned that a few times. And just, be creative and work together. My contact information, and I will stop now. So your next presenter has their time.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any questions, please call me or Angie.
I believe Olivia is joining us on Zoom.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Olivia. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, and thank you for having me this way. I just jumped from another Zoom meeting, so I really appreciate everyone being willing to have me hybrid, and apologies that I can't be there. That was a really amazing presentation. I'd love to catch up with you another time. Mary, thank you for that. So I will go ahead and share my screen. So I am Olivia Williams from Madison Area Community Land Trust. So I'm going to talk through what our program is and kind of how we've worked before, why the community land trust model is important in this housing market, and ways we could partner going forward. Just a little bit about me. I have a PhD in geography where I actually did research on community land trusts. I didn't really mean to end up working in this field, but now that's what I'm doing. So I joined the Madison Area Community Land Trust Board originally in 2019. Began as a contractor working for the organization in 2020, and eventually executive director in late 2020. So have been here a few years. I want to share a little bit about us now. Our mission is to liberate land for the benefit of historically marginalized populations at the lowest incomes possible, preserving urban space for community use, and creating deeply and permanently affordable home ownership opportunities for those typically exploited by the housing market. So that's a mouthful, but we're really focused on affordable home ownership. Though we do own land at Troy Gardens, that's community garden space and farm space as well. So the model is really versatile and can be used kind of to preserve community space in a lot of different ways. Our biggest kind of purpose is to close this affordability gap between what low to moderate income buyers can afford and what today's homes cost. Which is something I'm sure you're all familiar with. I wanted to just give a little bit of background on Dane County. If you look back the last 20 years or 24 years, looking at the Dane County housing prices versus median income, median home prices for single family homes increased 5.53% per year on average since the year 2000, while median incomes increased an average of 2.85% per year. So part of the issue is like just the widening gap between incomes and homes. And if you project out those numbers over the next 20 years, we'll probably keep seeing incomes stagnating at the median level, while home prices might go up, to $1 million or more. So this is kind of, the issue we're dealing with, and it's probably getting worse. So the community land trust model really responds to this by creating opportunities for permanently affordable homeownership. I want to put us in the context of Wisconsin. We were the first community land trust in Wisconsin, and we incorporated in 1990. And there have been a few other CLTs that have emerged in Wisconsin since then. So there's in the La Crosse area, the Cooley Cap started a community land trust in 2009. And then more recently in Milwaukee and Door County, there have been a couple newer land trusts. So those are in the yellow stars on this map. But recently, there are 6 other communities where community land trusts are in planning stages right now. And we've all been meeting monthly as a network to provide each other assistance and collaborate. So this idea is spreading across our state and across the United States. There's been quite an interest in CLTs over the last 5 to 10 years, especially. So there are 315 CLTs in the United States, which is up 40% since 2018. And that number is growing. So in Wisconsin right now, there are 92 housing units in community land trusts in total. And those 92 units have served 152 families because our homes stay permanently affordable. So I'll get into more of how that works, but I wanted to just bring up this. This is kind of a hot topic right now, and there's a lot of growing interest in creating community land trusts across the state, but we are the one serving Dane County. So this is a map that shows where our homes are located, where we own the land under these homes, and the homes are owned by individuals. And all of our homes are in the city of Madison right now, but our service area is Dane County. So we're always looking for opportunities to expand our footprint beyond just the city limits. A lot of the reason these homes are all within the city of Madison has to do with the city being able to allocate funds both from HUD through CDBG and home dollars, as well as the Affordable Housing Fund. So this has just been where it's kind of easy for us to get the subsidy we need to do the work. We have, there are 62 permanently affordable homes that we've developed here in this photo. And with those homes, we've served 123 families, which means that we've brought in an initial subsidy from the city of Madison, and now that subsidy has doubled its impact just since we've built these homes. So over time, the number of family serves will continue to increase. Another great thing about the model is that we involve residents in decision-making long-term on our board. So a third of our board are residents, and up to a half the board can be residents in the land trust. And we also have a stewardship committee for people in our housing to kind of be involved in supporting each other with and helping us create policies that work for everyone, both current homeowners and future homeowners. And we provide post-purchase support for our homeowners in our program as well. These are just some photos of homes that we've developed. So we've done kind of single family new construction. We've done townhomes and twin homes. And there are 2 condo associations that we developed kind of pre-recession that were Troy Gardens and Anniversary Court Condo Association, which is in the top right-hand corner. Troy Gardens is in the bottom left-hand corner. And then we've done a bunch of acquisition rehab properties as well, where we buy a home and get a city subsidy to help rehab that home and bring it up to a really good condition in order to sell it to a low-income person. So this is just a few examples of some of the homes we've done. We're looking to do more kind of multifamily condos potentially at a site in the next few years. I would be interested in manufactured housing as well. as we learn more about that. So here's the general idea of what our model looks like and how it works. So we get an initial affordability investment, or what I've been calling a subsidy, usually from a governmental source. And we also find a low-income buyer, and we're required to work with buyers below 80% of the area median income, but we're often targeting folks below 50% with our programming right now. So that low-income buyer gets a mortgage for the home only. And this is a special mortgage. It's called a leasehold mortgage. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have standards for community land trust leasehold mortgages, and WIDA will also do them. So we're able to work with quite a variety of lenders and get good interest rates for our buyers. That buyer then signs a ground lease, which has a resale formula that keeps the home affordable for all future buyers. And then the community land trust owns the land under the home and supports the homeowners long term. So that initial affordability investment really stays, it's kind of gets buried in the land. It's like with the home forever. That home stays affordable, and that initial affordability investment multiplies in impact over time. Though no one really gets to see that money. I mean, unless, we're not selling the home and the land. That's how you would kind of profit from it, right? So we're trying to keep it affordable and in line with low incomes over time. So this model is really flexible too. I mean, we've used it in this hot market in Madison, but it also works in a lot of different settings and urban and rural settings, really from 30% AMI up to 80% AMI in terms of who can get a mortgage. We're kind of trying to get that price as low as possible. The really biggest kind of argument for a community land trust is that we're retaining public subsidy. So, each year as housing gets more expensive, the subsidy that would be needed to bring a home into the land trust 5 years from now is going to be more than the subsidy needed today. So that's why getting a home into a land trust as quickly as possible is going to help us help more families over time. So this graph kind of shows this pink is like the public subsidy and how that has to increase over time if you're doing one-time affordable housing or if you kind of wait to do affordable housing. And our first home in 1993 in the land trust, we only needed $16,000 in federal funds to make that home affordable. And that home is still affordable today, where now we need $200,000 to buy a home and rehab it and put it in the land trust, or, buy a piece of land and construct something on it and sell it at an affordable price and keep it affordable. So that retaining public subsidy is one of the biggest kind of reasons for the model. But there's also the typical kind of benefits of home ownership that our residents are able to get. Most of our buyers are first-time home buyers who've really only been able to rent and probably wouldn't be able to buy at all in this market. So, they're able to achieve stable monthly housing price expenses, and then can build equity in their principal and their mortgage, which they can use for, maybe starting a business, paying tuition, or buying a market rate home eventually. They get autonomy over their home and can paint the walls and garden and do those sorts of things. Also have access to our staff for post-purchase support. So we've been able sometimes to connect people to social services that are needed, or we've been really successful the last couple years in getting grant funding for things like minor home repair, and accessibility kind of measures that need to be added to homes. So we've been able to kind of connect our residents to other resources and also provide kind of names of contractors and things like that when they have questions. There's also within the land trust, an opportunity to pass the home to heirs, as long as those heirs are low income at the time of transfer. There's also a lot of really interesting research on community land trusts showing that there's a 90% reduction in the rate of foreclosure for CLT homeowners as compared to conventional homeowners. So that data came from kind of the Great Recession era. And, there's just a lot of kind of protective mechanisms with having the post-purchase support and the connection from the land trust to lender is also kind of part of the equation of how the ground lease works. There's also all the public benefits of the efficient use of public funds, where that investment stays with the land forever. And so that home, which, we're able to bring into the land trust for that initial buyer, can provide generations of place-based impact by staying affordable in that place where, we have homes in neighborhoods that even we wouldn't be able to buy in anymore just because they've gotten so expensive. And we also provide kind of home ownership pathways for people who've been marginalized from the housing market and otherwise might not be able to buy in the Dane County area. And creating a needed supply of workforce housing, which, might be something Middleton would be concerned with. I know that's the name of the committee, but just being able to live in the place that you work, being kind of an important thing for livelihoods. So this is the heady slide that kind of gets at the nuts and bolts of how this really works with a real house. So this is the most recent house we added to the land trust that we bought from a friendly seller, and we rehabbed it and sold it to a low-income person. So this home was appraised at $240,000. It's in the Marquette neighborhood in Madison. We invested $92,000 in home rehab in the house. So the total project cost or total development cost was about $330,000. So this was already, pretty cheap in a lot of ways, kind of on the cheap end of what we can do. The city invested $116,000 in the Affordable Housing Fund. The seller also donated some value. So we actually bought this home for $210,000 because the seller was willing to go below the appraised value. So they got a tax deduction for that $30,000. So then we sold that home for $186,000. But the buyer also qualified for a lot of down payment assistance. So they were able to access assistance from the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, the City of Madison, and WIDA, bringing their first mortgage principal down to $134,000. So they got a WIDA mortgage, a little over 6% interest rate, which was in the fall. So pretty good for this time, in the market. And so this home sold to a family of 5 that was at 32% area median income. So they make $43,000 a year. So this is just kind of a concrete example of how we could reach, this kind of very low income family. And then the bottom part shows how our resale formula works. So it's a 1% simple interest rate per year formula added to that purchase price, which was $186,000 for this house. So we also have a policy where you can add like credit for capital improvements. So if they like remodeled the kitchen or finished their basement, they can add credit to this sales price. They can add more money to what they can sell their house for based on the cost of those capital improvements. So, but without any capital improvements, this is what they can predict they can sell their house for within the land trust. And we have, you know, a list of a bunch of qualified buyers, and we kind of facilitate the sales process if the seller desires. So this is kind of that, you know, that concrete example of how it works. Many homes are more expensive than this project, especially new construction can be a lot more expensive. So this, you know, these are the kinds of projects that make our work the easiest, is when we can find a low cost home to acquire and rehab. But we're also doing new construction this year as well. So this is my last slide, where I was trying to think through, you know, ways we can partner more with the city of Middleton. And Daphne kind of asked this question in the email, you know, to present on. So I'm thinking through, I had connected with Middleton staff a couple years ago, and we talked about, there was I think a TID closure at some point coming up in a few years. So there could be funding available, you know, for affordable housing. If that's happening, and a community land trust is of interest, I would encourage you to work with us to think through how the funding can work with us, because sometimes cities or counties can write their RFP in a way that it doesn't actually work with our program. Because these have to be pretty much permanent subsidy, we're not planning to pay it back, you know? So that's one thing where right now the Dane County Workforce Housing Fund requires a payback after 30 years, my understanding of it. So it doesn't actually work with our program. So potential funding could include the TID closure, could include the Dane County Affordable Housing Development Fund if it's modified. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago is another source that, you know, I've done a lot of research and talking with them about kind of different projects that could work with their funding. So, you know, I think there's potential there as well. We haven't had a project that exactly worked yet, but I think for new construction of, you know, like a 20-unit condo, or that's kind of the type of project that would probably work with that funding source, which is a regional funding source. Yeah, so I think I'm looking for ongoing kind of conversation and partnership to think through, you know, best ways we can work together. One of those ways could be coordinating on locating potential property sites if those are known. And if there's the right time, you know, if we could also kind of work with Dane County on modifying how their funding structure works, that funding could be used in Middleton as well. So that's, those are all my slides, but I'm happy to answer questions if there's time. I know we're past 6:30 now.
One more item on the agenda? Are we-
There is one more, but it's not related to the presentation.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. So I guess it gets any questions on any of the presentations?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
Olivia, you said there was a ground lease. Is there a lease fee on top of their mortgage then?
Yes,
Or is it
I'm
just
sorry, I
construction?
forgot to mention
Okay.
that. But yeah, it is $75 a month for our single family homes. Or we charge $50 a month for a condo unit. So those, you know, it just pads our kind of administrative budget. It doesn't actually like cover everything. So we often kind of look for private donations and grants as well to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Olivia.
very
Thank you.
interesting.
Great presentation.
Alder
Lisa?
Nairo has a question.
I have a bunch of questions for all three of you, so, but we'll go in reverse order. We'll start with Olivia. So do you build the houses on property or do you acquire homes? I know your last slide indicated, partner with MACLT to coordinate on locating potential properties in Middleton. How do you find the properties?
Yeah, we've done it all different ways. I mean, we've sometimes been gifted land or we've acquired it. And sometimes we just acquire the home and rehab it, but we've done new construction. We've done all kinds of different ways. Right now we're partnering with a developer to build homes for us. So that's also an option where we kind of have a lot of developer colleagues and partners that we can work with as well. So we're trying to maximize, we're a 4-staff operation. So trying to maximize our impact might mean partnering as well, but we also have the capacity to lead some developments.
Okay, and then, so I love the idea of a community land trust for getting people into homes. What concerns me, and maybe this is just a misperception, I hope it is. What concerns me is when I look at your, you had a slide, I forget which one it was, that showed sort of a gap between the, I typed it down where it was, but it was showing what the subsidy was and what it would be market rate. And then you also had the acquisition rehabilitation project example showing the future sale price. So my concern is if one of the goals of getting people to be able to buy a home is to help them build wealth, because that's what we hear a lot, that, not having homes for people to buy or having them be unaffordable means people aren't able to build wealth. They're not going to build the same wealth with these homes as they would, Kurt Paulson mentioned how much his home had gone up since he bought it. So the people that we're trying to help acquire homes and build wealth are actually going to be able to acquire the home, but they're not going to build wealth like they would if they could save up and buy a market rate house. That is my concern. So help me figure out why I shouldn't be concerned about.
Yeah, this is the big question that, comes up. So the way I think about it is, research shows that renters can only on average save $100 a month. If you've been renting and you want to live in Dane County and cannot find a market rate home, even with down payment assistance, and it's just not working, getting something in between renting and a market rate home will help you get to the market rate home later. So it's a stepping stone is one way to think of it. Saving equity in your mortgage is so much better than all of your money going to the landlord and not seeing any principal ever again. Plus it's predictable. So you have a 30-year fixed mortgage, you know what your costs are going to be. So it's very stabilizing, where the rental market right now is incredibly hard. And rents can go up every year and there's no protection against that. So it's really a stabilizing thing, that's kind of a stepping stone from one to another. So it's not the same as conventional home ownership. And, we make sure everyone coming into our program really knows that, and they meet with an attorney to review the ground lease and they sign off that they really understand, and they go through our orientation and we make sure everyone really knows. But if you have limited public subsidy, public dollars available, you have the TID closure, you have, X number of dollars, how many families do you want to help? And how long do you want to help families into the future? You're going to help more families stabilize and save some equity with a community land trust model than you would if you only did conventional home ownership. Those dollars would not serve the same number of people. They would serve fewer people to get a little further, and it wouldn't be as long-term in its impact.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I have a couple questions for Amy. What is the owner satisfaction after 5 or 10 years in the manufactured homes?
A manufactured home, actually, our national association, the Manufactured Housing Institute, just did some studies of mainly people living in manufactured home communities, and the satisfaction was very, very good. I can't quote you the numbers.
76%.
I thought it was 80 something.
Oh.
But I don't know. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but today's manufactured homes are built much more energy efficient. You know, you'll hear that, oh, they're not energy efficient. Well, they are. Clayton Homes actually committed to building every single home zero energy ready. So if you could hook it up the right way, it could be zero energy ready. So the energy efficiency has greatly improved. Customer satisfaction has greatly improved and the quality has greatly improved. But I can't give you an exact number. I could get you those numbers though.
And you mentioned the zoning code that sometimes would exclude homes like the ones you were talking about. Is our new zoning code okay? Have you had a chance to look at
I
ours?
haven't looked at it, but I would love to take a look at it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, off the top of my head, I think we changed some of the definitions for manufactured modular just because we've heard of, a lot of these things. So I have to take a look at exactly, what we've changed. But we definitely, I believe modular is definitely allowed in any residential district. I have to check specifically for manufactured.
Where does cross mod fit in there? Is that called out separately or is that?
So that would be a manufactured home.
Would be
So if you
manufactured.
exclude them, you would be excluding
Gotcha.
the cross mod.
And if you're looking for those definitions, they're in state statute.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Even the cross mod.
No,
Oh, the cross
No.
mod would be a manufactured home.
Yeah, that's a trademark, isn't it? Or
Yeah,
copy.
yeah, it's just a trademark name, yeah.
I had another question, Amy. Can you tell us where some modular homes are being built? And I'm thinking specifically, I tried to find out if Founder's Point in Sheboygan Falls, which is, those homes are like 200 to 250,000. Are those manufactured homes, do you know?
I think they're panelized, which
Okay.
means portions are built in a factory. And those have big subsidies from the employers in the area.
Yeah.
That is a wonderful project. You talk about the perfect marrying of industry needing workers and people needing housing. That is a great, excellent use of doing that kind of thing.
I agree, and I have suggested that the committee get a presentation on that project and also start talking to some of our big manufacturer or
Yes,
employers in the
yeah.
area to use Sheboygan model.
Yeah.
And that's a good segue to some questions, a couple questions for Kurt Paulson. So the gap between total employment and total households on slide or page 6 of your slides. You said we either need to increase housing or decrease jobs. And of course, nobody wants to decrease the jobs. I hear from residents, I'll say, not so much constituents of District 6, but residents who are upset about new development. Their concern is, why do we have to build all these units of housing? They would like single family homes. I try to explain that if we build 70 single family homes on farmland, as opposed to 70 units in an apartment building downtown, we're still going to have traffic. In fact, we'll have more traffic because people will not be able to go anywhere without a car. It'll eat up farmland, which is not a policy that Middleton advocates. So the question is, can we just let people live outside the city and keep Middleton the same size?
Well,
And of course, I'm
that's
asking
kind
that
of the
tongue in
choice
cheek.
that that's kind of the choice that people are forcing on, and it's not just Middleton, right? If you think of, let's just hypothetically say West Area plan in Madison, right? I don't want any change in my neighborhood. I like it the way it is. So what they're forcing you to do is say that any new person who comes into the region is going to either buy an existing home, which then displaces someone else to Cross Plains or Mazo to drive, or we already see it in the data, right? These are the people who work in Middleton probably live up in Baraboo or down in Janesville, right? And so you're forcing people to commute. So how is that either fair or good for the environment? Like you said, you can either absorb the demand close to jobs so people drive less, hopefully use transit, or you've kind of forced them to drive further, right? So what's hidden in that data is that people say, well, I don't want any change in my neighborhood or my city. But that doesn't, I'm known for a stupid kind of pun about this. I call it the reverse field of dreams. If you don't build it, they still will come. People are still coming here for jobs, right? And so what that means is that the lower wage workers get squeezed out further and further out. Either they live further away or they have to double up, or in the worst case, become homeless. So but if you're asking what's the kind of silver bullet argument that convinces a already very well housed person like you or me that we should accept more housing in our neighborhood and community, it is a challenge. It's a hard sell, right? But it really is these kind of systems effects of people driving too much, or racial inequity, or forcing our lower wage workers to live further away. And that's why ultimately it does require employers to also say, hey, I can't get any workers.
Yeah.
Right? I know it's a dumb metaphor, but like I've been trying to get a haircut for a week, but there's never any appointments because nobody at the Supercuts in our neighborhood, nobody ever works there because the two people who work there, when I talk to them, one lives in Baraboo, one lives in Janesville.
Yes.
Right? So it's at some point in time, it is a selfish concern to say, if you want people to work in the restaurants or take care of your kids in childcare, or, I'm getting up there in age, eventually take care of me in the nursing home, right? You don't have anyone to do any work if you can't find any housing.
Yeah. And
But,
I love those points. I love the point about getting the employers involved in emphasizing the need for, well, employers and also businesses. Recently the council just rejected a proposal sorry, I have dogs in back. The council rejected a proposal to redevelop Vern's Auto Body. And I'm hoping that proposal is not completely dead. But not a single restaurant owner showed up to support the development, even though there would be 70 households of people suddenly able to walk to restaurants and go to the library, whatever. Shop.
Yeah, when we presented our strategic housing plan from this committee in 2015 to City Council, actually, the Middleton Chamber showed up without our prompting and said, you need to approve this because we can't find workers. So we need to kind of nudge our chamber to get back into a little bit of advocacy.
Yeah.
That
would be great.
No,
And
I mean, that's the truth, right? It's the neighbors nearby who, the 5-10 neighbors show up and they get organized. And the thousands of people who would benefit a little bit, employers, the rest of us, we don't show up because we don't really know what's going on.
Mhm. Or they
So-
don't want to alienate, people who are upset, which, because we had more than a handful show up.
So this committee, the Workforce Housing Committee, could be more proactive to advocate publicly for new housing development.
I have another point to make. Another good argument I've heard a couple people make is, so you're saying you're good enough to live here, but the people who teach your kids and police your area and fight your fires and stuff aren't good enough to live in your neighborhood. So, I mean, it's putting that argument back on people kind of sometimes shuts them down a little. So.
Yeah.
I have a question for Kurt. Kurt, how do we get you out of a house at a 2.5% mortgage rate? You'd be high to get out of that mortgage.
Yeah, no. So that's the lock-in effect.
Yeah.
And it's not just boomers, it's us boring Gen Xers. We're locked in with a refi at 2.8%. There's only one way to get me out of that house, and that's in a pine box. Right? Sorry, I mean, I told that to my kids because, I think a lot of seniors, and I'm getting up there, you want to move down to a condo. You don't want to shovel, you don't want to mow.
What condos?
There are no condos. And the only condo is Marie condo, sorry. No. But if you have to refinance, you get a new mortgage at 7%, that's not worth it. And if the only condos available are 500,000-600,000, that's not worth it. So a lot of seniors are going to stay, they'd prefer not to stay. Right, so unless you build new housing for the young families that want to move here, because the school district, Lisa, as you know, is telling us that enrollment's going down in our school district, because it's not just the apartments, it's all the seniors staying, which of course it makes sense to stay. We don't want people to die or move, so you have to build new. Or build a condo for them to move down to, but
Yeah,
it's so stuck right now.
it is.
Don't even get me started on condo financing, so, which is your
That's our
Let's-
next.
your next
I
topic.
mean, let's have how do we, we've talked about how Middleton doesn't have as much land,
Right?
right? And that, so that I see issue with suggesting modular housing as a solution because there's not as many places to build it, right? So it's, that can be a part of it can be rehabbing existing stock and building more densely in existing neighborhoods, but is that gonna have 70 units a year, or what's the gap, 2,500 units a year we need in Dane County? We have to go up.
Well, there is modular building structures as well. So Skyline Champion is one company that they do build modular units. They'll build, you know, office building, hotels, all sorts of stuff. So there is modular construction on the large scale too.
And there's a lot of that in California and New York. It's just not as economical here, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I'm bummed to hear about
But the issue is, we have to think about is Middleton and other, right? If we can't build up and we can't build in where we already are, we are gonna have to move out to further current high quality farmland. And you just look at a map, it's pretty clear where that's gonna have to be, right? Eventually, we might grow north and touch Wanakee if the only thing you can build is single family detached, that's. Or
No,
we
it's
become like Berkeley where it's
this,
$1 million homes.
this like soul of Madison and Dane County is its proximity to farmland. So if we want to move out, we give up what makes it.
Yeah.
What we are.
Yeah,
What, Kurt, what do you see as the? I hear a lot about the fact that our rate of home ownership versus renters is getting skewed. We're actually getting a higher portion of renter population than owner population. What are your thoughts just generally about, I mean, if we want to get denser, which, you know, it seems like that's the common sense solution, we're really going to tend towards a more renter occupied population unless financing changes drastically. So what
Well,
do you,
there's
what do you
a-
say about that? If we-
so there's a
kinda-
townhouse style,
Yeah.
zero lot line, fee simple.
Yeah.
Townhouse style, which didn't make it into the zoning, even though I suggested it should be a use by right, so maybe that's something to revisit. About whether a townhouse style product could fit for homeownership. But I'll tell you, the people who are always complaining to me about too many renters are people who look like me. They're older, they're whiter, they're homeowners.
Yeah.
And the correct answer is, well, we have made it so that millennials and Gen Z can't afford a home. Right? So, you know, to quote Taylor Swift, it's me, I'm the problem, right? I had to throw that in there. When people say, oh, we need more ownership, it's like, can we build more ownership near you? No. Well, then, are you really, is that, I think it's a smokescreen. I'm just saying they don't want change in their neighborhood.
Mhm.
And, you know, very important to Olivia's point, which is, you know, I was able to afford to buy a home in Middleton. That then has gone up $250,000 in dollars because I was able to buy a home that went up in value out near Philadelphia. And the reason I was able to buy that home is, like a lot of people of the upper middle class, I went to the bank of mom and dad, right? And so that's why wealth inequality compounds. And so I just want to highlight Olivia's point, right? Is that for someone who's a renter, even if you don't make a lot on the appreciation side, if you're in a CLT home, you make a lot in terms of the savings month to month over rent. And then you do build some equity, which can be used then as the down payment of a more market rate home. So it's got to be the townhouse and condo sort of style if you want to build denser, or duplex. or kind of a co-op sort of model. But at that entry level, if you can't get the price down enough for like an FHA, it's gonna have to be something like a CLT type product.
Yeah. But is our community inherently less stable with a higher renter proportion versus ownership? I mean,
No.
is there any data that
No.
would support that?
One less
And-
thing to
and-
worry about.
I mean, we also have to say that at the federal level, Olivia knows where I'm gonna go with this, you know, the most heavily subsidized form of housing is single family
Yes,
home
yeah.
ownership for wealthier white people like me. I mean, that's, the subsidies vast outweigh what we do for affordable rental housing. So, but I know it comes up when you're gonna build, particularly when we did some LIHTC units, people are coding that as Section 8 or public housing, and the evidence just isn't there, right? Because all of us were renters at some point in time. Right, the whole idea that renters are this. I think elected and appointed officials, we need to push back on the anti-renter rhetoric when it comes up.
I did that. I did that at one of the council meetings.
Mhm.
The meeting after someone was very anti-apartment and I pushed back. And I believe my colleagues on council agree, but I was the only one who mentioned it. Actually, no, Alder Cole, who lives in a condo, she supported it, but I do believe my colleagues felt the same way, but many of my same colleagues were persuaded by the handful of neighbors, some not even neighbors, who were very concerned about the Terrace Avenue project, even though it was unanimously supported by the Plan Commission after the developers agreed to modify the design in a way that staff had suggested to eliminate the two concerns that were brought up first, blasting and trees. Once those two concerns went away, though, the opposition found
New
another.
concerns arise.
Yeah. They changed the arguments against, so.
Any other questions?
This is I don't know anything about it, but for condo financing and condo ownership, what are the barriers there? In a short.
In the short answer, so there's at least three barriers.
Yeah.
One is the federal financing rules that come as the FHA and FHFA, which is the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the regulator of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Basically make it so that you can't get financing for a new build condo. Because during the time that you are building it, you're the owner as the builder. And so nobody who wants to buy the unit can get an individual mortgage until like 80% of them are sold. So it's a chicken and egg thing, right? So that you can build condos, you can get financing now for existing condos. You can get a mortgage. You can't get financing to build new because the people who would buy can't get financing to buy.
Until you're 80%
Until
pre-sold.
you're 80% sold or pre-sold, which you can't do because you can't market, right? So condos are being built, it's just doing what's called portfolio lending. Just higher. It's a higher end, you know, so they just made some condos downtown Madison, 750, 800,000. So that's a little bit more than what a teacher or a cop can afford.
Mhm.
So there's warranty and liability issues with you know, the law, which I'm not a lawyer, so. And then the other issue is just if you're gonna build, so building a standard multifamily rental in Dane County is about 340,000 per unit. If you're gonna build it to condo standards, you know, bigger units, better walls, better insulation, higher amenity, higher finish, 360, 380. Right, so now you're already pricing out. When you add in land and financing, if you can't deliver it less than 400, you're already pricing out the big middle class that you might want to sell to, or the seniors who want to move down. So existing condos now sell pretty quickly. Because there's huge demand. And you can build new at the high end, you just can't build at that middle range that you want.
Are there any like mixed income ownership models for condos?
So that would be a co-op, like you could have a market equity co-op or a limited equity co-op that would have that mixed income.
'Cause I
There
don't
are
know
a
if-
couple examples in Madison too.
Yeah.
I'll just add to that. I mean, Troy Gardens, I didn't mention in my presentation, but 10 of the units are market rate and we don't have any control over who can buy those. And 20 are in the land trust kind of affordable program. And then Linden Co-housing has a few units. I want to say 5 maybe units that have a resale formula very similar to ours, and the rest are market rate. So there's a couple ways you could do that kind of as condos as well as the co-op model.
So the land trust owns the land the building is on. And then 10 of the condos are market and the rest of them are with your rules.
Yeah.
Now, some apartment developers are building new units to condo standards, hoping to convert them at a later date. But that's a small. I mean, the other major problem is every multifamily builder in this county is plenty busy. So,
So that's a capacity issue and not necessarily a construction cost or
Right.
financing.
There's one more condo issue that I've heard a private developer bring up, which is there was I think it was a Supreme Court case a few years ago that basically set this precedent that a condo association can sue the developer within 7 years for any kind of like construction defects. So now some developers are especially afraid of that, you know, especially when they're serving higher income or like, you know, high end kind of buyers. Whereas I think it's less likely to happen in our case. I'm not so afraid by it, I guess. But I've heard that come up, you know, kind of in the developer world.
but Olivia, you could do a multifamily land trust with kind of a co-op structure, right? So that people could have some equity, but they're living more in a multifamily.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there haven't been any limited equity cooperatives developed in Wisconsin. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but not, at least not in Dane County. And so, that's also kind of a lending thing. Like, how do you get the right kind of lender to be really creative and figure out how to do it with you as you're constructing it? It's, to me, just as hard as building condos. So.
I mean, if the city of Middleton had a big pot of cash, they could, I mean, that solves any problem.
It does.
Well, hopefully, you know, we do, you know, I'm hoping that we have some money that will result from the TID closure. And that we figure out kind of the best way to deploy that to meet our goals. And I'm kind of hoping that over time we can figure out what those goals are and how we would target that money. I think clearly we need to throw some city money at the issue. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to provide the subsidies that are required. So
In a sustainable way, I think.
in a sustainable way, yeah, right. In a sustainable way, we got to figure that out. And this discussion's been super helpful.
Mhm.
I appreciate everyone's
Mhm.
participation.
That we should have, the estimate is at least $10 million should be available when the TID closes. I mean, that's the affordable housing amount.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, for this idea of resistance to manufactured housing, it's like, I don't know if anybody in Dane County really cares where it's built, but they want to know that it is sustainable, locally sourced, and energy efficient.
Yeah.
Right. And I think last time I heard from the state economist, our second or third largest industry is timber in Wisconsin, still is, right? So if we build mass timber or manufactured houses here in Wisconsin, we grew our own homes, right? We're just planting housing here for people who are working in industries 1 and 2. So that's your window into Dane County for your association. It's like, nobody gives a shit where it came from, but they want to know that it's gonna be warm and energy efficient.
Yeah,
And like we said, we can take people on a tour and show you it's built with the same stuff as the site-built home is. Same
actually
wood.
manufactured homes now, we have, Focus on Energy is doing some pretty decent rebates to make it, to those energy standards.
And Lisa, a lot of them are small enough for one good air source heat pump, and
Yeah,
that's all you need.
Mhm.
and that can be done.
I think the other thing that I think a unique need in Middleton is, I know in Madison, there was the kind of the closure of a building because it was declared a nuisance property because it was kind of exclusively low income housing. And I don't think Middleton wants low income housing. It wants everyone together, right? It's mixed. It doesn't
Nobody
matter.
wants affordable housing or low income housing. That's why we call it attainable. Nobody grows up saying, I want an affordable house.
These projects that have market rate units and rent controlled units
Mixed.
mixed
Within them, yeah.
makes it more palatable to the community because it's your neighbor, right? It's not those people in that unit, it's those are my neighbors.
And all the affordable or subsidized housing we built in Middleton during my time on plan commission and this council was low income housing tax credit. So that, again, misnomer, because it really is a range of incomes
Mhm.
and mixture of units, so. But yeah, it comes up. I mean, those units in Madison were specially designated for people who had experienced homelessness, and so there's some kind of lessons learned there about the location, and but a lot of it had to do with the particular manager of the property, who is now bankrupt and out of the business. And so we're hoping those units, Olivia, you may have heard, they're gonna be sold soon to a kind of better capitalized nonprofit that will provide the services. And so the real lesson is, you know, people need services, and so you have to provide the services on site. So we do have some LIHTC units here in Dane County. We help in Middleton. We help to prove that have project-based vouchers and then supportive services in it. So you really do need that range. You just want to be careful not to say we don't want low-income housing. Because low-income housing can go all the way up to 60 or 80% of area.
Right,
median.
that's what we've learned from all these presentations. Low income housing in Dane County is normal housing most everywhere else.
Yeah.
Which is a good problem, right? It's like at the margins, there are problems. But growth in Dane County, is that bad? Is that growth in income in Dane County bad?
Well, it's good, but it's bad in the sense that it drives up housing prices, but it's also good in the sense we have the fiscal capacity to invest in services and affordable housing.
Kurt, it wasn't your presentation, but it was another one we saw recently. It kind of goes back to Randy's point about goals, right? When you break out the gap, it looked like when I saw a chart that the gap is really at about 30%. Like 50%, 80% is kind of right about even in terms of demand and supply. Because you're at market rate at the demand, there's a gap, and at 30%, there's a gap.
Yeah.
So if we're
I
gonna
should have
address,
brought that slide. I have that.
if we're gonna address the, and again, going forward, the trend is probably gonna create a gap at the other levels. But right now, there's already a gap at 30%. So you know, critical path, the critical need is at that level, right?
Right. And the truth is that you have a shortage of available and affordable units at 30% of AMI, whether you're in a really expensive area like Dane County or a real kind of lower cost area like La Crosse or Milwaukee or Akron, Ohio, because it's just no one at that income level earns enough to afford a decent place to live. And that's why you need subsidy.
Gotcha.
Right? But then the issue is if the cost to build new a modest priced home is significantly below the median price of for sale homes, then building lots of that modestly priced housing will bring down the price of those for sale homes and provide some of that relief at that middle of the market. Right? And then, you know, at the top of the market, people are always going to do fine. They're doing fine on their own.
Right.
So, Again, part of the idea of workforce housing is it's not just, and again, we want to dispel the myth that most people who earn less than 30% AMI are in the workforce and are working, right? And the exceptions are the people who are disabled or are seniors. Right, so there's virtually zero people who are work eligible who are not working. Right, it's the income you earn is not adequate to live in a decent place. But workforce housing covers that range, right? It's not just, you know, childcare workers make $15 an hour.
Yeah.
You can't afford to live anywhere in Dane County on that.
And the funny part of that example is there are, like, I talked to peers who they want to move their parents here to help with childcare.
Yeah.
Because there is none,
Oh.
but their parents can't afford to live there.
Right, well, they can build an ADU now.
Yeah.
Plant a new
But
garden.
that'll cost a fortune. as
Oh,
well.
to do a stick-built ADU in Middleton? 200 at least, 200,000 at least, so.
Well, that's why you
We-
can get a
We need a
manufactured.
modular,
ADU.
we need a modular ADU company that will,
Or a
you
manufactured.
just
ADU.
order it online, it comes and they plop it on a concrete pad
Yep.
and you plug in the water and sewer and electric
That can be
Net
done.
Zero, you just put the panels on it.
panels on it.
That's right.
Well,
Gotta have it built for that, though.
we need to check our code on that. Randy, do you remember, we did talk about what the requirements would be for the design of an ADU and the exterior look? I think we changed it to make it less
Yes,
restrictive.
we did. We opened the gates pretty wide.
Yeah.
Because Madison used to have an ordinance that said that the design shall be substantially similar,
That's,
right?
Yeah.
In terms of
Right.
color and roof pitch and finish.
Yeah, and we got rid of that.
Yeah.
We wanted to give some
But
flexibility.
most homeowners, if your house is green with a 40-degree pitch, you're gonna get the same style. And modular, you can customize it right on the app and say, I want this pitch of roof, I want this level of finish. I want vinyl, I want wood siding, you can customize it all.
And a lot of ADUs are just having the single-sided pitch now.
Yeah, that saves a lot on the trusses and the.
Right.
So great discussion. We got one more in the cover, right?
Yeah, so we can end our presentations here, so, present.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you. You're like, get out.
You had me for so long.
We
But-
appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah,
Your resolution says Federal Housing Authority. It's Federal Housing
oh,
Administration.
administration. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, everyone's welcome to stay if they would like to, but yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Olivia.
Olivia. Bye. So I'll share our last item on the agenda is, very similar to what we've been talking about, but the mayor, asked me to add this because Madison recently, I literally just took the wording from their resolution, to support, the financing, changing financing, for condos and housing cooperatives. And then I just basically changed it to match, Middleton data and what Middleton has to say. So this is the resolution. I think what happened with Madison is council passed it, but the mayor didn't sign it or something fell through the cracks, so the mayor didn't actually sign it. So our mayor was like, well, I'll sign it, and so she wanted us to look over it. And then if we pass it, it'll probably go to plan commission or council next, so. Yeah.
A little bit of this is is what, references what Kurt was talking about, the financing, kind of the blockage.
You have to have it sold before you can
Yeah,
finance it through these lenders.
right. You can't sell it if you can't finance it, so it's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, so everything highlighted is just like kind of the things that I changed specifically for Middleton. So this was from, I think, yeah, from Redfin. The average was 401,000 from February of last year to this year. For condos, it's basically like half of that. And then for home ownership, I took this from, you know, the US Census Bureau. So, white households, it's 86%, Hispanic Latino, 5.7, Asian, 4.8, and then Black was 1.1. And then, yeah, this one, I think this is what this paragraph is basically kind of what, this one and the next one is what Kurt had explained to us just earlier, where they have to have, you know, 80% of buildings, you know, sold, or the units sold before, you know, anyone can get a regular FHA mortgage.
I mean, it's like to prevent speculative like development or investments. but
Right, yeah,
The
yeah, 'cause-
outcome is that no condos get built.
Mhm, mhm. And so, I mean, this was all from the Madison, how they phrased it, so I didn't really change any of it here.
Yeah, and that's the administration versus the authority. Right there.
It's a couple of ways you
Yeah.
have to just find a good
Right,
place
yeah,
to-
so I'll just change that.
What do we need to do? What do we need to do as far as this? Just vote for it or?
We're voting on what's so, yeah, the last.
Yeah, well, this is the important part, the now therefore be resolved. So basically it's asking our common council to send, you know, this resolution to the chief executive officers of Fannie and Freddie, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, this is the authority, it should be administration probably. So basically to send this resolution to all of these kind of departments or committees, to kind of call on them to maybe discuss changing the legislation to make condos and housing cooperatives easier. So it's like, you know, it's kind of just asking like the city of Middleton to like call on all these federal departments to kind of change their, you know, lending practices. But I think the mayor thought it was a good kind of push to like I mean, because we've been talking about condos in our committee for so long.
Yep.
Just kind of having a stance on it.
And the mayor's asking for our support for resolution.
Yeah, if you guys have any, you know, things that you would maybe want to add or change to it, and then, you know, if you support doing something like this, you know, we'll vote on it and then we'll pass it on to plan commission and then to council.
Okay, any discussion on the resolution?
Lisa has her hand up.
Lisa?
Yes, thanks. I support the idea of doing a resolution. I would like to ask that maybe we take a closer look at this one, tweak it, maybe find out why the Madison mayor didn't sign it. Was there something in particular that she, because it strikes me as odd that she wouldn't have supported it. So I'm wondering, how can we improve this and make it more Middleton specific, a little more succinct? Because we do sometimes read resolutions like this at council meetings. And also I noted that it's asking, one of the results is asking the administration or the executive branch to do what they can within their current abilities. And I'm wondering, why aren't we also asking Congress to do what it might need to do? Because, you know, having it just struck me that basically we're throwing in the towel and not even going to ask Congress to take a stab at anything. And I get why that might be, but it just seems to me if the problem is the law, we need to change that and ask, you know, Representative Pocan and Senators Baldwin and Johnson to step up. So I would like to suggest maybe Daphne, I'm willing to work with you on the wording, and it doesn't seem like this is urgent. This has been a long problem. So maybe we could talk about this at our next meeting, a scaled back version, and I can talk to the mayor too and find out, you know, maybe there's a way to work in some references to one of our workforce housing strategies from 2022 specifically mentioned condos. So I think it would be good to work in details like that into some of the whereases.
Suggestion on that, Lisa and Daphne, just on that first, where it's resolved, just plainly reads kind of weak to me, right? It's like provide increased transparency. What we want, I guess if we're looking, if the resolution is to better facilitate financing. Rather, kind of be more clear about that versus to say provide increased transparency into the process, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Is there work that can be done outside the committee meeting to redo language on this, or is there?
Yeah, so what
Yep.
I can do is I'll send this out as it's just a Word doc, so I can send this out to you guys and, track changes or whatever.
So well, let's get it to a page and go for it.
I like that idea a lot.
Okay, great. Then I guess, yeah, then we don't need any motion really as of right now, if it's just to continue working on it, yeah. With that, that's the last thing on our agenda.
Okay.
So,
This is really great. Those are 3 really good presentations.
Yeah.
Daphne, when do you think the slides will be available? Because I send my newsletter out on Wednesday and I'd love to share a link. And also I wanted to remind everyone that the Regional Housing Strategy Kickoff event is Thursday,
It's this Thursday.
this Thursday.
this Thursday. Yeah, I have a couple events coming up. Yeah, it's this Thursday at 6 or 6:30. I forget which. I think it's 6. I'm gonna
And
say
what is it to do? Like the objective of just like hang out and affirm
learn.
affinity for, learn, got it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's when they're gonna unveil their whole plan for the region that they've been working on for the past, year and a half. So they're probably gonna go over some of the major strategies and some of those things, and then, yeah, it'll really just be a lot of time to meet other people in the housing realms in other communities, developers and, people like Amy and Olivia. So, yeah.
It starts doors open at 6 with mingling, food, refreshments, music, and fun activities. But then there are going to be opening remarks by the county board chair, Madison Mayor, president of Dane County Cities and Villages, and executive director of MadRep. I don't know what that is. And then they'll do an overview of the strategic action plan report, round robin with municipalities. I don't know who's invited to do that. And then Dane County 2024 housing action items and Q&A and then next steps. So it's, partly social, partly networking, but also, unveiling this strategic action plan.
Good. Got a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn. Sorry, I was late.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining.
Thanks, Daphne.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks for coordinating, but.